Someone is calling Blair's name. She yells for him to wake up immediately. The whole room laughs, asking why he still studies there. The boy asks where he is. Someone pulls the sleeve of his shirt. The girl tells Blair that Brittany will call again. Looking back, he sees the magnificent woman in front of him. Angrily, she asks if Blair forgot where he is. The boy says that this woman is his great teacher. She pulls his ear. His teacher says she can't believe he's sleeping in class and immediately asks Blair to answer math question 15. The protagonist doesn't know what to do, but putting his hand on his forehead, he says he understood the problem. The teacher says he can answer the question by tomorrow, and that this is the punishment for sleeping. The whole room continues laughing at him, saying he will never be able to solve such a difficult problem. But Blair seems very confident. She notices that the boy's confidence is at the level of an experienced academic. The miserable one is a genius and answers correctly, blushing. The teacher says that's impossible. Our boy asks if he can go to the bathroom, and she says yes. The room is restless after this little demonstration. Looking at the board, he sees that the calculations are correct. Everyone screams in shock as our boy walks through the school. In his mind, he says that expression doesn't need a progression calculation. It's just a crossing. Chen-Lu is just an ordinary teacher who believes in mathematics. He worked hard for a long time and will finally receive the title of senior professional next year. But when he was taking the exam, he dozed off, and when he woke up, he was in another world. The protagonist says this is not scientific and calls for Newton to help him. Looking closely, he realizes he is now a boy bad at math, and the current world values it highly. Still, he is impressed that the students couldn't solve that simple problem and acted as if it were difficult. Blair says he doesn't know how he came to this world, but seeing how everyone is stupid, he might reach the top, reach the pinnacle of life using mathematics. We see a girl with pink hair. She and the protagonist end up bumping into each other. Our boy asks if she's okay, but the two are in a somewhat suspicious situation. Noticing this, Blair immediately gets off her. He quickly apologizes, saying he wasn't paying attention. The blonde girl steps back, saying it's him again. The protagonist sees that she knows him. Very angry, she says that Blair bumped into her at the entrance ceremony and embarrassed her, swearing never to forget. She adds that he bumped into her again, but this time deliberately and vulgarly. From Blair's face, he doesn't know what to say or do. Trying to resolve the situation, the protagonist says she hit him first. Suddenly, the girl makes strange gestures with her hand. Then she seems to be reciting a spell. Our hero sighs, thinking she's crazy. Then he jokes, doing the same thing, but in a funny way. A strange symbol suddenly appears. The girl's hand is on fire. She says she will go after Blair with everything she has. From her expression, the ending wasn't so easy. The boy doesn't know what to do when he gets a fireball in the face, but the girl yells at him to be ready to be punished. The protagonist has a great idea. Before being killed, he bows and apologizes profusely for what happened. Of course, the blonde didn't expect that. Clenching her fist, she asks him not to think it's over just because of those apologies. But when she finishes saying that our hero is no longer there, Blair is running as if his life depends on it. In his mind, nothing makes sense because magic and science coexist. Suddenly, the protagonist's head starts to hurt. Because of this, he ends up fainting. Fragments of Blair's memories are wandering through his mind, and we see him crying, asking for his father. The general died honorably fighting. Someone hands over a box, offering condolences. A hand and his son in front of a house. Around them, people say that after the general died, the wounded became just a poor ex-noble who needs to work. Blair is heading towards his mother, telling her he got into college. She says he must study hard, and meanwhile, the boy says he has grown up. In her mind, her son is identical to his father. An old man asks Blair to hurry. If he can't do it, he won't be able to sleep there in the future. The boy says he will definitely come home. Our protagonist knows that the owner of this body, despite working so hard, never had a talent for magic, and he was always insulted by his classmates. Returning to the present, his friend calls him, asking if Blair is okay. He says her name is Jasmine, but wonders how she found him there. Being very kind, she extends her hand to help him up. Blair thanks her, but thinks to himself that the previous owner had a hard life, so from now on, it will be up to him. In a classroom, the teacher is teaching the 4 types of magical elements. The bald man says that this world is divided between ordinary people and those who can use magic, and their school is the best and most famous among all the others. Magic is divided into 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Through gestures, the mage can use spiritual energy to manifest such power. We see that after the class, students are happy to finally be able to leave. We see the same boy a little sad after hearing these statements. Before leaving, our boy calls for his teacher. He asks what dear Blair wants. The protagonist asks the teacher if a person without talent can still use magic. Being arrogant, he says the boy has asked that many times. Then he leaves, saying it's impossible to use magic without the necessary talent. People around are mocking him for being so serious but still having no talent. His friend arrives and says Blair doesn't need to be sad if he doesn't graduate, because if he can't, he will work on his father's estate. In his memories, the protagonist remembers that this is Toby, Blair's best and only friend. The boy is smiling for having driven away the guys who were bothering him. Toby says he's leaving, and our boy waves goodbye. While Jasmine watches, looking back, the protagonist asks if she has something to say, and being very shy, the girl answers no. Then she runs off, saying that teacher Brittany is calling him to the office. Blair thinks she's strange for always sneaking around and watching him all the time. Stealthy says it's ironic to have an absurd knowledge of math but no talent for magic. Our boy tries to recite a fireball spell, but as expected, nothing happens. His expression is one of disappointment, but something appears, emanating the reddish aura. Hot fire comes out of his hand and makes a spiral around his arm. In his subconscious, Blair didn't expect this. After all, doing this is impossible without talent. Putting that aside, the protagonist starts playing with a fireball. After all, it's not every day that you go to another world. Our boy says that maybe because he's a traveler, he must have been enlightened. But he soon remembers that he needs to go to the office of the great teacher Brittany. The sunset seems to be approaching. Blair knocks on the door, calling her. When he enters, he apologizes for being late. For some reason, our boy blushes. And the reason is in one of the teacher's poses. We see that the protagonist is infatuated with her. She smiles, saying he finally arrived. Brittany asks him not to mind her strange poses. Then she asks Blair to sit in the chair. The woman says she prepared hundreds of calculations for him to do. She soon throws all the papers on the table. Brittany says she will leave and asks the boy not to rush. Suddenly, the protagonist already says the answer to the question. At the same moment, she asks if that's possible. Then she runs towards Blair. She soon says that if it were her, she wouldn't be able to do it. Our boy doesn't know what to say to the woman in front of him. Being friendly, Brittany asks if he can explain how he solved the question. Blair is defeated by the power of her cuteness. In his mind, he says his teacher is more foolish than usual. Hitting the table, Blair says he did the operation in sequence, but the problem and the statement were very prone to errors. Brittany says there's only one solution and one way to do this. He says that's not right, because for this problem, you just need to find a pattern. Sum all the penultimate numbers until they add up to 80. Pointing to the board, the protagonist asks if she knows what the sum of all the penultimate numbers can be to get 80. Very excited, she raises her hand and says 39. Blair says the answer is correct and then asks her to sit down. Our boy explains that from a tedious addition problem, the account became a simple multiplication problem. With this kind of method, you can solve several problems in an easy way. Brittany asks how there can be such an intelligent way. She then adds that this solution can be more generalized. If you sum all the numbers of a constant period, then the formula can be described as simple. With various calculations, the teacher's head ends up in another world. Our boy wakes her up, asking if everyone in this world is that dumb. She responds with another question, asking if this is the solution. Smiling, Blair says it's easier to calculate this way and everyone can do it too. Taking our boy's hand, the woman says he is a genius. If he is willing to always study, his future will be unlimited. Brittany doesn't know, but is emanating a terrifying force that is overwhelming the protagonist. Stepping back, she apologizes for getting a bit too excited. Brittany asks if Blair wants to be a great mathematician. He says no and adds that he wants to be a great magician. Hearing this, the teacher becomes sad. Brittany passionately says that he received intelligence given by the gods and shouldn't waste it. And as far as she knows, he has no talent for magic. Because no matter how Blair looks at it, the answer to everything is mathematics. Our Sigma boy pushes her away immediately and says that no matter what, he will indeed become a magician. In his mind, Blair says that if he just threw in some advanced equations, he could become a great mathematician. But those are just works of another world. In his perspective, magic is much more attractive than any equation or square root. Brittany asks if the protagonist dares to make a bet with her. In a few days, there will be a magic test in the classroom, and this test will determine Blair's future at the academy. Our boy says he already knows that the woman says that if he really wants to be a magician, he must pass the test. And she adds that this will be like a game. If Blair doesn't pass, she will do something to keep him at school, but he will have to be a mathematician. But if he manages to pass, Brittany will no longer insist and asks what the protagonist thinks. In her mind, she says this is a lost game for the boy who has no talent. Still, the protagonist accepts. Leaving there, Blair says that his teacher is very persistent. He remembers what she said before about not forgetting the agreement. Our boy stops thinking about it and refocuses his mind on studying magic. Turning to the side, we see the fire girl. As if it were destiny, the two bump into each other. Before falling, Blair says this feeling is familiar. When he looks and sees who it is, he is shocked. The girl goes at him this time to kill him. She soon recites the fire spell. A ball of the recited element appears in her hand. But looking ahead, the protagonist is no longer there and says that if he had stayed, he would have been burned. Brittany asks why Isabel seems so unhappy since she arrived. Immediately, the girl says she encountered a pervert at school and adds that next time she will definitely burn him alive. Isabel throws the papers on the table, saying she had already solved the problems. She is happy since it only took her half an hour. Brittany says Isabel is almost faster than her, but says Blair took only 1 minute. She doesn't know what to say, and in her head, this is impossible, and asks who this boy is. Her teacher says he used a solution never seen before. Brittany tells Isabel what the protagonist taught. She says it is a very intelligent way to solve it. Very excited, she asks her teacher to introduce her to Blair. Brittany notices that the girl is very enthusiastic and then says she will do it. Moments later, Isabel kicks the classroom door, asking who here is Blair. Toby already suspects his friend is in trouble. Someone pinches him from under the table. This is our boy asking him to stay quiet. Toby tells her that the protagonist left the room. Of course, Isabel suspects the situation. Leaving, she asks that when he arrives to tell him she wants to talk to him. The protagonist's friend is a bit nervous but says he will indeed let him know. The girl slams the door and leaves. Blair comes out from under the table. Everyone is in great silence. The boy doesn't seem well as he had to face his senpai. Toby asks what the hell the protagonist did. Our boy is deeply confused because he doesn't know who she is. His friend says he really seems like a robot who only knows how to study and work. Toby says Isabel has many followers at the academy, and if those guys find out Blair offended her, things won't end well. Our boy says the academy has rules and they can't do whatever they want. Toby asks if the boy knows where the school is. Blair doesn't know how to respond, so he says something like in the City of Apollo. His friend asks him not to be so stupid. Isabel's father is the Lord of Apollo City. Our boy asks if there's still time to apologize. Someone in the background shouts about the protagonist touching Lady Isabel. The bully says he won't do anything since Blair will be expelled after failing the test. Toby notices that the guy wants to start a fight. The bully explains that just having good grades allows you to stay in the academy, but after graduation to remain, you must know magic. Therefore, all second-year students have to take a test, and if they fail, they are expelled immediately. However, for normal students, this is like a walk in the park. But this changes because Blair has no talent. In his mind, the protagonist understands why teacher Brittany chose this test for the agreement. To get attention, the bully slams the table. He asks if Blair didn't hear what he said, and adds that the boy is just a bastard orphan. After saying this, Toby stands up from his chair. He then asks if the bully wants to fight. Arrogantly, the bully says it's none of his business. Toby says the protagonist is his friend, and it's his duty to protect him. The bully gets angry and says he'll remember this. Leaving, he says that next time he'll settle this. In his mind, the protagonist says this chubby guy might not seem reliable, but in critical moments, he is very loyal. Confidently, our boy asks if Isabel came to bother him, would he do the same? Toby says if the girl asked him to hit the protagonist, he would do it instantly. These words leave Blair desolate. The day of the test arrives, and the teacher explains that the magic everyone will use is the fireball and adds that this is basic, so most should pass. In this test, besides reciting the spell, students must hit the target. The teacher asks the bully to start. We then see the guy reciting the spell. He soon throws the fireball and hits the target, passing with 8 points. The teacher calls the next person. The bully sees our boy in the crowd and tells him to enjoy his last moment in the academy. Toby tells the bully to shut up. The next person will be the chubby guy. He recites the spell just like the bully. Small fireball appears and he struggles to maintain it. Toby throws it towards the target. A small spark reaches it, and the teacher says it counts. Of course, the boy is happy about that. The teacher looks at the protagonist's document and already knows he has no talent for magic. He sighs, saying that Blair is a little fool. The teacher was about to say that everyone passed, but the bully interrupts to say something. He says one person is still missing. Student Blair hasn't taken the test. Our boy stays silent. The teacher asks if Blair will take the test. At that moment, everyone laughs, saying it's impossible since he can't even do the basics, and they call him Blair the magical idiot. Toby comes close, saying it's obvious they planned this. Against all odds, the protagonist says he will take the test. No one understands the reason for his decision, but of course they mock it with all their might. The girls say Blair still doesn't realize he's a magical waste. The teacher tells them all to be quiet, and again asks if the boy will take the test. Blair says yes, he will take the test, so he says he can start now. Our boy is right in front of the target. He knows he can do magic without reciting, but he'll still pretend. The protagonist starts reciting the spell, then commands the fireball to manifest. Everyone covers their eyes, thinking something will come out, but no magic can be seen. Soon the students start laughing and mocking the boy. But that was just a matter of time for his fury to ignite. A large fire of magic can be seen with the naked eye. The target is completely destroyed. In the area, everyone is scared by this, but Brittany is sad. Knowing our boy has talent, we see the ashes spreading over the grass. Then the teacher says Blair passed the test. The bully says that's impossible. Toby is excited, saying he knew his friend was amazing. The teacher asks Blair to come with him. In her mind, Brittany wonders how our boy did that. The lie that Blair told to avoid being discovered is that he practiced every day, and suddenly it worked. The teacher says that magic is given by the gods, and those who can't manifest it are called forsaken by the gods. People who lack talent are extremely rare, and someone who previously had none and now does is almost like a joke. Anyway, he says that our boy has great potential to become a mage. In his mind, Blair says that last time someone persuaded him to be a mathematician. Now it's for magic. The teacher says that the protagonist has really worked hard during this period and will certainly reach the level of a saint mage. Blair realizes that the Saint Mage level is the highest one can achieve, and adds that there is a story of someone who reached this level and their main power is to tear the fabric of space and time. Our boy starts to realize what he can do if he reaches the maximum. Soon after, Blair looks at the teacher and says that he will certainly become a Saint Mage. Elsewhere, the protagonist says that the academy took a few days off because of the test. Using this short period, he studied magic books to the maximum, and then discovered that the levels of mages are divided into 7, with the Saint Mage being the pinnacle. Their powerful magics are described only in books. Accounts claim that a Saint Mage can tear the fabric of space-time and travel between different worlds and dimensions. But the current world does not believe in this nonsense, but our boy thinks about how he ended up in this place and knows that maybe this might have something to do with it. Unfortunately, his teacher does not believe in spatial magic, so he couldn't get more information. Someone arrives and asks if Blair is still reading. The protagonist says this is the administrator. Our boy asserts that he will continue to read. The next day, Blair stayed up all night studying. He opens the classroom door. The crowd is already formed, and everyone is gossiping about the past event. About Blair's magic being great and powerful, other students say he was just hiding his strength. The girls say that if you pay attention, the boy is actually quite handsome. In front of him, Isabel is sitting. Of course, he wonders why she is there. In such a suspicious position, Blair covers his eyes, saying he cannot see. Isabel says it is unexpected that he is the person Brittany was talking about. Blair tries to say that this is all a misunderstanding. She yells, calling the boy a pervert. Her fury is overflowing in the form of magic. Then she starts reciting a fireball spell. Our boy tries to defend himself in some way, but soon realizes that nothing hit him. Luckily, his teacher arrived in time, stopping Isabel from doing something bad. Brittany says it is forbidden to use magic inside the classroom unless permitted by a superior. The girl asks her to listen, but Brittany tells Isabel to be quiet. Then the teacher says she was looking for him and tells him to go to her office. Brittany adds that Isabel should go with him too. Blair feels proud, but still, the miserable boy is indeed a genius. The three leave and soon the door closes. The bully is left confused and asks what just happened. Inside the teacher's office, Blair is sincerely apologizing for his actions and adds that everything that happened was a misunderstanding. Brittany says the boy was careless and asks Isabel not to be bothered. Still arrogant, she accepts the apologies. A bit sad, the teacher tells Blair that his magical power is beyond her understanding and, as promised, she will not persuade him anymore. But she asks how he managed to do it and if he could teach her. Our boy says it just happened and says he has a question about magic. Being savvy, she says she won't force him to answer and adds that the protagonist can ask anything. Blair asks if one needs to use gestures and recite the magic to invoke it. Isabel says that question is very stupid because even a child knows that anyway. The protagonist continues asking if all mages are the same. Brittany says that no matter the level, to invoke magic, one needs gestures and to recite it. The only ones who don't need that are the gods. Isabel says her teacher doesn't need to answer such a ridiculous question with such seriousness. Our boy notes that he is different and maybe can do it because he is not from this world. Brittany continues to explain that this is common sense, and if Blair wants to be a great mage, he must memorize theory books. But that's not why she called him to her office. His teacher has a type of paper in her hand, and our boy is confused because he doesn't know what it is. Isabel says this is a journal where the most important academic works of the entire kingdom are published. Suddenly, the girl is startled by something she sees. She notices that her teacher's and Blair's names are in the journal. Brittany says she submitted the formulas she learned from the protagonist. Blair doesn't care about this since he earns little money working in the library, and as far as he knows, you can't eat paper. His teacher says she almost forgot something. She hands over a bag full of coins, saying this is a bonus for the manuscript. Of course, the protagonist is happy since he earns 2 silver coins a month, and in one day he got more than 50. All thanks to his wonderful teacher. Innocently, Brittany says she will take half since she also contributed. Now our boy will receive only 25 silver coins. In his mind, he says he has never seen such a cunning snake. Anyway, it's still a good amount. Like it or not, Blair has an idea to make a lot of money. Looking at his teacher, the boy asks if there is always a bonus of 50 coins for each published work. The woman says she didn't pay much attention to that, but maybe that's normal since the journal is famous, being very clever. Blair says he has been having a good thought lately and continues, saying he thought of solving a formula in a unified way. Brittany realizes something incredible is happening in front of her again and adds that this might be the mystery of Ross. Our boy doesn't know who this guy is, and his teacher explains that it's a mathematical problem posed by the great mathematician Ross. She does the math and soon says that in the problem, Ross has 7 cats, 7 wives, and 7 bags. Blair says the solution is easy, but if you want to simplify it, just use the unified formula. Hearing this, Brittany is happy that the great mathematical problem can be solved simply. In his mind, he says he still has some preliminary ideas. His teacher calls him to help solve the problem. Time passes quickly while the two are studying. Isabel ends up falling asleep, but a noise wakes her up. She wakes up to her teacher shouting that this is incredible. Brittany says the protagonist really has a great talent for mathematics. Isabel comes closer, saying she didn't know the boy was all that, and asks if all this came from his head. He gets serious, asking if she really wants to know. Blushing, she says Blair can't keep telling lies. The protagonist says he just spends a lot of time with math while others are sleeping. The girl gets embarrassed, asking what he is talking about. Another day, Isabel is thinking about Blair. In front of her, she sees him acting suspiciously. This is the second-year building, and the protagonist is in the first year, so she wonders if he will harass the seniors. This time, she will follow him to see what Blair is up to. But observing, our boy had already disappeared. We see that the protagonist is in front of a large wall. Earlier, Toby had talked about this wall in the second and third-year building. Doing several flips, Blair says his teacher is right. He said the protagonist could go to the city to find a high-level mage to teach him. Outside the academy, our boy finds everything interesting, because the city is bustling with all kinds of people. Walking around, our boy says this place is very prosperous. In front of him is the Magic Association. Apparently, this building is huge and majestic. He takes a mask from his pocket and puts it on his face, saying it's better not to reveal his identity. Entering the place, it seems a bit crowded. Seeing up close, the receptionist is his friend, but she doesn't recognize him because of the mask. She asks if the protagonist wants to hire a magic consultant. Blair says yes, and in his mind, he says the girl must be working part-time. Jasmine says the consultant fees range from 15 gold coins to 2. After hearing that, he can't stand it because the amount is absurd, and 100 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin. So he apologizes for the inconvenience, but she runs after him. Jasmine says that if money is a problem, Blair can get a library loan card. Hearing this, our boy is surprised. Then the girl says that the institution has a large library. It may not be as good as an instructor, but it's better than nothing. Blair says he will make the card, and then Jasmine asks for his credentials. Of course, this shakes him because before he didn't even know his name, let alone where important documents are, and the girl says she thought he was already a mage but still has the option to borrow a credential. Or getting the certification, which is easier since you just need to cast a spell of the element corresponding to the mage certifying you. Blair asks if he can get the certification here. She says he can, but she doesn't recommend doing it today, because the certifier this time is very strict. Ignoring everything, the protagonist says he will do it today. 2 men appear, and Jasmine says that Blair wants the certificate. They sit down, and the bald man questions why Blair is wearing a mask. Hiding the reason, our boy lies about his name and says he was practicing the fireball spell and ended up burning his face. The old man says that burning yourself with a basic spell is not very common. Arrogantly, the bald man says Blair will be a junior mage only in his next life. Jasmine asks everyone to head to the testing area, but the man refuses, saying there's no need, and adds that Blair can use his fire magic to attack him. This scares the boy since he didn't expect it to be like this. Because he knows the power of the attack, speaking directly, the old man asks if he thinks his little fireball can hurt Andra. The protagonist tries not to insist much, and since he's being asked. Around him, the fire magic is spreading through the room. Seeing that, Andra says to the old man that this year there's no one decent. But of course, the spell isn't over as the protagonist continues gathering all his mana. Everyone realizes this is going to be extremely dangerous. But the bald man had asked Blair to attack him, and our boy strictly obeys. The gigantic sphere, more like the sun, is heading toward Andra. His only reaction is to await the terrible silence of imminent death. An explosion occurs, and a beam of light blinds the people around. After the attack, smoke rises. Not knowing what to do, Jasmine coughs. In front of her, the smoke is dissipating, and we see the old man. When he sensed the incoming danger, he raised a barrier, and it withstood the fireball well, thus saving Andra from becoming a barbecue. Desperate, he has no reaction and remains on the ground. His face of terror can be seen as a synonym of hopelessness. Jasmine is astonished by the destructive power, and meanwhile, our boy apologizes, because he thought they were ready, so he decided to use a bit more force. After all this, Jasmine hands him the certification and the library card. The protagonist is excited because he can finally study. Very enthusiastic, the girl says she has never seen anything like that and adds she is sure Blair will be a great mage in the future. He thanks her, and she says she will wait for him until next time. But Jasmine notices something. How did the boy know her name? In the library, Blair didn't expect there to be so many people. Sitting and looking at various books, he says this is strange. As the girl had said, the books in this library are more comprehensive and in-depth, especially the part about magical spiritual power. We are explained that spiritual power defines the strength of a mage's magic besides their affinity with the element. High-level mages have an immeasurable advantage over the weaker ones. However, the theory of the 4 elements described in the books is an absurd compliment given the little knowledge this world has about mathematics. People believe that the 4 elements are responsible for the foundation not only of magic, but of the entire world. All other elements are derivatives of the 4 main ones. It's the same principle as primary colors. Going deeper into the subject, Blair notices several different things, like the existence of magic in this world having no scientific explanation. The protagonist thinks of something brilliant about elemental communications. He abruptly gets up from the chair he was sitting in. With a big smile on his face, he says that if everything goes well, he can create a new magic. Then he grabs the library card. Very excited, he runs out saying he will make a great discovery, so he will return to the academy and then test it to see if it works. In the background, we see Jasmine, the old man, and Andra. They are having a magnificent coffee. As always, the bald man continues to belittle Blair, but says the power of the fireball is immeasurable. Stroking his beard, the old man says it was strange because he had no control over the protagonist's magic. It was like something entirely different from this reality. Surely there is something about this boy that they won't be able to understand. Night falls, and the protagonist is jumping over the academy wall. His jumps are simple and quick, landing on the ground after jumping onto the grass. He says that since no one is around, he will test his theory right away. Calmly and lightly, our boy closes his eyes. He takes a deep breath to feel the energy of the environment. At the same moment, he feels something coming. He notices that he can really control the entire flow. The boy says he will now try to sense the second most abundant element in the atmosphere. Gathering energy in the palm of his hand is his O2. Observing it, the protagonist cannot say if it is pure oxygen. Concentrating as much as he can, he manages to do something impressive. Mixing the power of fire with oxygen, he discovers that this is 100% real. But the spark that was igniting suddenly goes out, causing a great disappointment. Still, with eyes full of determination, our boy tries again to control both elements as one. Lightning and winds are succumbing to everything. Meanwhile, the protagonist is within the vortex of fire and oxygen. The entire academy trembles and everything starts to crack and break. The teacher feels the tremor and asks what it is looking out the window. She notices something like a great explosion. Almost the entire forest was set on fire. The good news is that Blair is alive and well. Incredibly, the magic was so strong that it still surrounds him. Fortunately, the boy managed to stop in time. The dense fog hovering over the area dissipates, and the protagonist notices something. The ground was shattered, completely combusted. It turned out that the oxygen was much purer than he thought. After hearing the explosion, people start to appear. Blair flees, saying it wasn't supposed to cause such a commotion. Running through the forest, the boy says the explosion might have been big. However, it created something significantly large. The next day in the classroom, the protagonist is studying as usual. He ended up falling asleep due to the eventful night he had. A hand hovers over his shoulder. It's Toby asking if Blair knows what happened last night. Lying blatantly, he responds that he doesn't know because he was sleeping. He explains that an explosion occurred, and now the school is under investigation as there are suspicions of seniors casting spells. Given the size of the crater, it was at least a high-level mage. The chubby boy starts thinking about the most suspicious people, then says that teacher Brittany is a high-level mage. After this statement, for some reason, the boy becomes alert. He goes to her office and knocks on the door. She opens it, happy that Blair came by, because she really needed him. Holding a paper in her hand, she says that the Mathematical Society posted something about the solution to Ross' problem. Since it was the protagonist who solved it, his name is listed as the author. She then congratulates him on solving one of the greatest mathematical problems. Interrupting this topic, Blair says there are more important matters to address. He shouts that he wants to study mathematics with her. The woman doesn't understand the reason for this decision. Brittany asks what happened to the story of becoming a great mage, and the boy says he will be both. Suddenly, she grabs his arm, and then says she is happy Blair thinks that way. She then tells him to come to her office every night to study mathematics. The protagonist is emotional with all this enthusiasm that feels like a volcano erupting. Brittany says that with the boy's talent, he will surely become a great mathematician, and stepping away from her, Blair says he has a magic question and asks if she can answer it. The conversation was brief. The woman agreed to help and answer questions whenever he wanted, and then the protagonist opens the door to leave. His teacher reminds him to come by the next night. As the boy is about to close the door, Brittany tells him to wait. Then she falls silent, making the atmosphere tense. Blair gets scared and asks what she wanted. She doesn't respond or say anything, but then asks if the boy is taking advantage of her to get answers to various magic questions. She looks intently at the protagonist. Sweating heavily, our boy realizes he's been found out. With flowers around him, he tells a half-truth that he just wants to spend more time with her. Brittany approaches him, and of course, the protagonist thinks he's going to die. Being very cute, she asks the boy to be careful when leaving and reminds him to come by at night after class. Practically, Blair feels like he's been expelled from there. In his subconscious, the protagonist doesn't know if she is stupid or intelligent. Later, the next night, the boy arrives and opens the office door. Brittany is sitting with Isabel. Suspicious, the girl looks at him and asks what he is doing there. The woman apologizes to Isabel because she forgot to mention that starting today, Blair will be studying with them. And since Isabel is his senior, she must take care of and help him when needed. She then asks Blair to sit next to Isabel as she has a question she'd like him to answer. A large stone is thrown into a well, followed by another stone with double the mass, and she asks which stone will reach the bottom first. Isabel says she just needs to calculate the time, but our boy explains that the larger stone will never catch up with the smaller one. Ignoring air resistance, the smaller stone would be the first to arrive. After hearing this response, the girl gets annoyed. She then says that Blair has good knowledge but lacks common sense. Brittany says she didn't understand what the protagonist said, but the wise ones have stated that the object with the greater mass will fall first. For some reason, the girl continues to argue, saying that even a child knows this, of course. After these statements, Blair gets a bit angry, questioning if she has confirmed this. Isabel says they cannot doubt the great sages. The teacher just observes the confrontation between the two. Quickly and directly, the boy says that for something to be true, it has to be proven. She retorts, asking if he wants to bet to see if it's true. Brittany tells them both to stop, but Isabel says she bets 10 gold coins. At that moment, the protagonist gets excited. The three go outside the academy to an open field to conduct the test. Holding the stones, the teacher asks Blair to think it over because 10 gold coins is not a small amount. Apparently without remorse, the boy tells her to continue beside him. Isabel says this will be the easiest victory of her life. Looking at the girl, Brittany says confidence is a good thing, but arrogance can lead to a point of no return. A strong wind blows over everyone present. Then the teacher starts to float. After witnessing this, the boy is impressed. Seeing Blair's surprise, she mocks him, saying he's a commoner for finding this so interesting. The teacher is now in a high enough place to drop the stones. With a serious look, Brittany prepares to start the test. Meanwhile, Isabel continues arrogantly, saying with certainty that Blair will lose. The stones are released and quickly fall. For a moment, the two seem to be at the same speed. Then they fall almost simultaneously. With a surprised look, Isabel doesn't know what to say, excited. Our boy already knows he has won the bet. After this, the woman descends to check. We observe that her landing is long and smooth. The girl shouts that this is totally impossible. Both look at the result in surprise. Brittany asks how on earth the protagonist knew that, and he says he saw it in a book and then tried it. Thousands of years have passed and humanity was believing in a great lie. All the errors and common senses were unveiled by Blair, and that's certainly not luck. She tells the boy that the law of falling objects has completely changed after this test. Of course, our boy is not too impressed since this is basic in his world. His teacher repeats that Blair is a genius, and beside him, Isabel is seething with rage. Looking at the girl, she asks him to update the law of falling objects with her help. With a serious expression, the protagonist says he will need Isabel's help. For a moment, the girl thinks about all this. In her mind, she sees both of them in the newspapers with the title, The Emergence of Two Geniuses. Of course, this would be a shock to the industry, and her reputation level would rise. Typical of a tsundere. She pouts but soon accepts. The girl thinks about her and our boy, the two happy and together discovering new things about mathematics. And maybe when they get married, her name would be Blair Isabel. Her blushing face can be seen from afar. Elegantly, she tells the protagonist that if he gets into trouble, he can call her and she will surely solve everything. Blair extends his hand to the girl. Things in her brain become totally confused. Being very cute, she asks why he's extending his hand, and Blair says he wants the bet money. Well, gold coins are never too much. Isabel runs away crying, telling him to put crap in his head. A few hours later, she gives the coins. In his subconscious, Blair says he got rich just by making a bet with the arrogant, spoiled girl. Approaching, Isabel says he doesn't care about fame or honor, but apparently he likes money. For a few seconds, the protagonist remains silent. Meanwhile, the girl asks what Blair wants. The beautiful blue sky covers the entire world. The leaves sway with the wind that incessantly continues to wander. Memories of his fake past life. Hours working and teaching. Still, he was always happy with his students. The boy asks what she is talking about standing up. Blair simply says that he wants money to improve his life. Nothing more, nothing less. Leaving, he bids farewell to Isabel and Brittany. The two beauties watch our boy walk away. The next day, Blair is almost asleep at his desk. Nevertheless, he is happy because now he has money. Maybe he should even move house in the future. Someone arrives and is bully calling the boy's attention. He says that his senior is looking for him and immediately tells the trash to get up. Blair doesn't understand anything and just stands still, grabbing his wrist. Bully tells him to lower his head because casting a fireball means nothing. The voice resounds, telling the bully to let Blair go. The student this time is Senior Feige. Basic attributes and common appearance, but he apparently has two bodyguards. Looking back, the protagonist doesn't know who this guy is. Feige approaches, asking if he is Blair. For a brief moment, the guy stares at him, but our boy ignores him and asks if Bully didn't hear the senior telling him to let go. After letting go, the protagonist questions what's happening. The guy tells Blair to stay away from Isabel from now on because someone like him shouldn't be getting close or even talking casually. Then everyone leaves and the protagonist just watches. Feige ends up bumping into Toby. He doesn't apologize and the chubby boy remains on the ground. Getting up, he goes to Blair and asks if he's okay. Simply, our boy explains that the senior just came to exchange some words. Toby seems afraid of the guy. He says everyone at the academy fears him, and Blair is the only one who doesn't care. The boy is the son of the great Viscount and the youngest heir of the Howard family. He adds, if someone offends him, they'll have a hard time living in the academy. Putting a hand on Blair's shoulder, Toby says he knows the protagonist is infatuated with Isabel's beauty, but advises him to follow Fee's orders. Sometime later, we see the bright sun shining over the academy. Inside the office, Blair is thinking about his pure oxygen ball that cannot be launched immediately because it needs time to concentrate. At the moment, his biggest advantage is not needing to recite or make any gestures. He soon wonders if he can use multiple elements at once, but Isabel interrupts, saying he needs to study more on the subject that teacher Brittany assigned, handing over a paper. Our boy yawns. It shows that Blair has already written everything. The girl is impressed with such speed. Very calmly, the protagonist says he just needs to use different ways to solve each calculation. In other words, find the most ingenious solution possible. Isabel listens to every detail to learn more. Then the boy stands up, asking her something. How many fireballs can she summon at once? And the girl responds that at most 9 by Blair's face. This is totally absurd. Teasing the boy, Isabel says she knows he can only launch one at a time. Retorting, the protagonist says he didn't find anything about summoning more than one magic in the books. The girl explains that the books present basic theories and not specific magics, and adds that she only learned to launch multiple at once because her father hired a consultant. But if someone is willing to call her big sister, maybe she can teach. Without hesitation, Blair calls her big sister. The response was so quick that even Isabel didn't expect it. Then she calls him a thick-skinned pervert. Getting up from the chair, she asks Blair to follow her because she's going to show him how it's done. Outside the school, the two find themselves in a small field. Isabel casts the multiple fireball spell. In total, only 9 appear. After seeing this, the boy is impressed with such a skill, besides the ability to keep them all stable. The girl says many mages think they only need to keep a magical spirit in one place, but actually you can summon and manipulate them however you want depending on skill and experience. Concentrating, you can launch them at a single target at once. Blair asks if it's possible to control them all in different ways, and Isabel explains that it would be like drawing a circle with your right hand and a square with your left. The two laugh cheerfully as the conversation flows. Meanwhile, in the stalker's head, he thinks they are dating. Full of rage, she breaks the wall with a squeeze of his hand. This is Feej furious after the protagonist ignored his warning. He says that Blair will pay for all of this. Sometime later, our boy is training based on what Isabel said, dividing his mind into 9 independent parts. The girl tells him to do it gradually, not all at once. But it's fine if Blair can't do it, since it took her over 6 months. The ball in the boy's hand shines, releasing several sparks. Suddenly, multiple fireballs are summoned. She then screams, asking how Blair did that, raising his hand. Our boy says he did it using her method. For some reason, Isabel complains while the protagonist doesn't understand. He says he just followed what the girl said. In her mind, Isabel says this pervert is not just a genius in mathematics, but also in magic. A person who was once considered abandoned by the gods is now literally a gifted blessed one. Then she shouts, saying the protagonist took too long. She runs off, telling him not to look for her if he needs help with magic. Placing his hand on his face, Blair doesn't understand what he did wrong and thinks it's hard to understand women. Touching his pocket, he feels something strange. At that moment, Isabel is running, calling him a pervert with all her might. Blair suddenly grabs her hand. This startles her, making her extremely alert. She questions why he's pulling her, looking at the palm of the boy's hand. There is something like a teddy bear bracelet. Being polite and elegant, our big boy calls his dear Isabel and says he could only learn something thanks to her careful training. He then asks her to accept this gift as a token from her little brother. Her eyes light up when she sees it, something so cute given from the heart. This makes the girl blush with his gesture. In her mind, she says this pervert is good. Quickly, she takes the bracelet from his hand, then runs off calling the bracelet ugly, but she ends up falling awkwardly on the ground. Even so, she gets up and looks back. Her gaze indicates uncertainty but also pure consideration. The boy wonders if he should comfort her. In any case, she continues to run away, saying she will never forgive him. Our boy is lost in thought, saying that bracelet cost 50 silver coins. He was going to give it to his teacher but changed his mind and gave it to Isabel. Suddenly, Blair notices something. The people in question are Fee's henchmen. Bully says he remembers that the senior warned him about getting close to the girl. Even so, he continued to meet her. Blair gets up from the tall grass, but he is surrounded by the guys. Before anything, it's better to run than stay and die. The fools chase after him, telling the boy to stop. In his subconscious, he says this group of people is a problem. Bully shouts that Blair is like his father, fleeing the battlefield and still getting killed. After hearing this, the boy stops. The guy asks if he hit a sore spot, then runs to attack him. When his punch is about to hit the protagonist, his hand burns, almost turning to ashes. With several fireballs in hand, the boy looks at everyone. Bully is severely injured because of Blair. The protagonist says that his father was a man who died fighting for this country. He is not just his father, but also a great hero. He then tells Bully not to insult him. The guys behind are scared after seeing that the protagonist made 9 fireballs. Then they run, leaving their accomplice behind like a superior being. Blair stands above Bully. Screaming, he asks the protagonist not to approach. because the academy restricts fights between students. Backing away, Bully tells Blair not to be impulsive. With an angry look, the boy says he should have said that earlier. When he moves to attack, he notices something. People are behind him. The boy screams for help, thinking he's about to die. But looking ahead, he sees the protagonist fallen. He pokes Blair to see if he's not dead. Without wasting time, he runs, leaving everyone behind. Brittany tells Bully to stop running. At the same moment, he says he didn't do anything and asks her to believe him because the protagonist fell on his own. Affectionately, she makes the boy see the skies. Blair is already red as he witnesses the true paradise. In a panic, Bully asks the teacher to listen to his explanation. Next to him, the guy yells about the situation. He then questions if the boy thinks they are blind and didn't see Blair fall at his feet. Then she tells Bully to go to her office. The guy apologizes to Vice President Calvin for him witnessing this, but apparently he doesn't care. Still, he says that something of this level cannot happen again. On her lap, Brittany notices that Blair's heartbeat has stopped. Later, we see that his soul tried to leave his body but couldn't, pulling him back. His teacher asks if the boy is okay. Then she hugs him, saying she was very worried. The voice draws their attention and says they will need a good explanation, but first they need to do something. Standing up, Brittany introduces them, and both are from the Mathematical Society. Very politely, our boy bows and salutes President Dean and Vice Calvin. Dean says that the protagonist is a genius for helping Brittany solve the Ross mystery. His teacher intervenes and says the mathematical problem and solution were entirely done by Blair. She only helped put it on paper. The men question if this is true, saying that if she claims it, she will receive many awards, and the society will help her as much as possible without concern for money. He adds that this will also help the academy. Brittany asks what will happen to Blair. Dean sighs upon hearing this. He says the boy is very young, and it's hard to believe he deciphered the Ross mystery. Blair takes her hand and nods for her to accept. Even so, Brittany hesitates about this. Dean gives them time to think about the offer. The teacher accepts the time given, and the two leave. Sunset arrives, ceasing to illuminate the area. Both walk down the corridor in complete silence. His teacher says that solving the Ross mystery doesn't help with development but is significant for history. And this honor belongs to the protagonist and he shouldn't let anyone else receive it. The boy's face is melancholic. He then says that it doesn't belong to him. Besides, she is not too old to accept something grand. After hearing this compliment, the woman's face brightens. Then the boy realizes he said something wrong again. All the students are looking at the board with various publications. The girl says that once again, Blair posted a new article with Miss Brittany, and it was the Ross mystery that even after years, no scholar could solve. But of course, it was the teacher Brittany who did it since Blair is insignificant. Ignoring all the opinions, the protagonist only thinks about what he sent to his teacher. Nevertheless, he sighs because he can't do anything else. Blair hears some shouts from an adult man. Someone is saying that he's a piece of trash and only knows how to fight. The person is Bully's father, complaining that he didn't send him to school to fight. Then he loses his temper, saying that since he likes to fight, he will finish him right there. The beating hits and it certainly must have hurt. Right after that, the man apologizes for his son and begs for him not to be expelled. Dean says that Bully's behavior is not the best. His father falls to the ground, begging for his son not to be expelled. Bully asks his father not to humiliate himself like that. Our boy appears, calling the president. The man greets him and Blair also greets him. Then he asks what the problem is seeing the protagonist. Bully gets very angry and grits his teeth. Dean says the academy will expel him for violence and breaking rules. Someone touches the boy's sleeve. Kneeling, he also begs the protagonist, and adds that when they get home, he will teach him a lesson. If he is expelled, Bully's life will be over. With a soft heart, our boy sighs. Then he tells the president that even though he had some small conflicts with Bully, he asks that he not be punished so severely. Everyone is silent. Looking at Bully's father, Dean says that because of the protagonist, the expulsion decision will be temporarily withdrawn. But if the boy does something like this again, there will be no second chance. The man takes his son's head, and then says this won't happen. Bully thanks Dean. He also thanks Blair. His father goes home, then the president asks us to go to the classroom. Our boy goes there and opens the door. Before that, Bully questions Blair's decision. He stands still, without saying a word. With a serious tone, Blair tells the boy not to treat his father like that. Again, Bully thanks him. He continues, saying something about the boy from earlier, because Fives won't let the protagonist go so easily. After all, his uncle is the vice president of the academy. Later, Blair is tired from the day and still has to work. His employer is waiting for him. Our boy doesn't understand the reason for the wait. He asks if Blair had offended someone recently. Of course, this worries him, and he asks if something is wrong. Leaving that aside, the old man fires the protagonist and adds that he can no longer live there, because that's the order of the vice president. After the incident, his teacher says she will take Blair and Isabel on an exchange trip. Then she asks if the boy will be busy tomorrow. Blair apologizes, saying he will have to find a place to stay since he was expelled from the library. Simply and directly, Brittany says he can stay at her house since she has a spare room and lives alone. After thinking about it, the protagonist has visions of libidinous things. but he says it's not very convenient. Like a good adult, she says there's a big advantage since he can ask math questions anytime. Then, a bit embarrassed, Blair accepts the invitation. Isabel arrives and immediately questions why Blair is present. Brittany explains everything, and also says the boy will live with her. This makes Isabel angry since, in her mind, the protagonist is still a pervert. But her teacher rebukes her, saying Blair is not that kind of person, and Isabel says she's just worried. Meanwhile, our boy is disheartened since he's gaining a reputation as a pervert. The two joke a bit, and Brittany asks Isabel to get ready for the exchange meeting. Looking back, she asks Blair to come in formal attire since the exchange will be at a seminar. Our boy asks if he can go in his magical worker's uniform. Waving goodbye, she says if he has one, he can use it. At night at the mansion, where the exchange meeting will take place, the three stand admiring the wonderful view. Everyone came in their best clothes, and Blair tried not to fall behind. Brittany introduces the mansion as belonging to the Howard family, the permanent exchange residents. Even in all the kingdoms, this family is respected for their skill and knowledge in mathematics. Seeing the crowd and the people around, he connects the dots between the Howards and the Fee House. Vice President Calvin is talking to the visitors. Our dear great teacher catches his attention. He welcomes the three of them. Blair says hello, and meanwhile, Isabel asks how long the boy has known the vice president. The man says he was talking to some important people and asks if Brittany would like to meet them. At the same moment, she asks the two to go ahead. Both enter the mansion where there are various delicious foods. Wasting no time, the boy attacks the first dish. Then he stuffs himself, and Isabel shouts, asking if he's a pig. She complains that the teacher didn't call them to eat, and then drags Blair away. Looking at the wall, the protagonist notices something, a giant painting with a strange drawing in the middle. Isabel says these are the 7 points of the royal capital, of which the whole Howard family is proud. Our boy asks what these 7 points are. The guy arrives, humiliating Blair for not knowing, and adds that he will fight with the guards for letting someone of such low level, and the girl tells Feige to watch his words. Even so, the guy continues, saying the boy doesn't even deserve to eat the food there. Isabel takes the protagonist's hand and asks him to ignore the insults. Of course, the jerk gets angry after seeing this scene. In his mind, the girl is only his, and no one can hold her hand. To taunt Blair, he asks if he is going to hide behind a woman, going towards the guy. Our boy questions Feige about the 7 points of the capital. She tries to stop Blair from doing something wrong. With a serious face, the protagonist shows great interest in the 7 points of the capital. Smiling, Feige asks if the boy really thinks he is a math genius. Isabel complains about this behavior, while the guy says he wants to know the new mathematical ideas Blair has. Then he shouts, alerting everyone that the protagonist is going to solve the 7 points of the capital. The girl is incredulous at this and doesn't know what to do. All the nobles believe that Brittany solved the Ross mystery and that the protagonist forced her to put his name on it. His teacher is also present and notices the commotion. Feige asks Blair not to disappoint the nobles. Suddenly, someone grabs the boy's hand. It's Brittany, but the protagonist doesn't understand why she is there. She questions the reason for the conflict, since the Howard family is the most powerful in Apollo City. This could make things difficult for him in the world of mathematics and even at the academy. Moreover, it's impossible to solve the 7 points of the capital, and Feige knows this, which is why he threw this problem at Blair. The boy gets Brittany's attention, and she looks to the side. Raising his glass, he asks if the boy isn't a great mathematician and questions if he lacks confidence. Furious, the woman was about to try something against Feige, but the protagonist stops her, saying he will try to solve the equation as a way to thank his senior for expelling him from the library. Both women are surprised by such a statement, because if Blair says he will do it, he will certainly keep his word. He turns to Feige, saying he will solve the 7 points of the capital. Feige explains that this is an equation that only the patriarch of the first generation managed to solve. Hundreds of years ago, he noticed a special topography of the capital. At that time, the urban area wasn't as large as it is today, and the city was divided in two by the river. Because of this, the patriarch created 7 bridges to connect the urban region. Looking at his creation, he had a brilliant idea. It was possible to go to any area crossing each bridge only once and then return to the starting point without repeating the path. After making the idea public, many mathematicians researched to try to find the solution. However, despite numerous attempts, no one found the answer. In the end, the patriarch solved it and was supposed to publish it for the entire kingdom the next day. But the whole day passed and he didn't appear, and night fell. Days later, they found his body in the river. Because of this, the answer was lost and no one from the new or old generation succeeded. Even so, the Howard family celebrates the patriarch's great achievement. This is the great glory of the entire family. Not much time passes after the explanation, and Blair seems to have already found the answer. Feige asks if the genius can find the solution. Surprisingly, the protagonist says he doesn't know. Feige laughs and questions where all the bravery went. The women ask if they heard correctly and compliment that Blair is a piece of trash and nothing but a waste. But a distinguished woman says maybe it isn't like that. Apparently, the protagonist tries to find the answer, but he realizes there is no solution, because in his past life, there was a similar problem. The whole room is watching Blair intently. Both Brittany and Isabel don't understand anything. Feige says the boy only says this because he doesn't know the answer, but the first patriarch of his family knew the solution. Blair refutes, asking if he has any evidence of this supposed solution. Feige loses his composure, questioning how the boy could doubt the sages. A man appears, telling Feige to stop. His name is Viscount Howard, and he says not to use the achievements of the past generation to show off. At that moment, Feige trembles, apologizing to his father. The man says he heard a lot about Blair from Calvin. Our boy greets him respectfully. The Viscount says he knows about the conflict with Feige and promptly apologizes, but he accuses family, saying the 7 points of the capital have no solution. Blair says he didn't accuse them because the problem truly has no solution. Beside him, Isabel says it's the first time she sees the boy so serious. The man becomes as furious as his son after hearing these statements. Against all odds, he says he has the evidence. Grabbing a paper and pen, he starts writing down the reasoning and the basis of the bridges. He then asks them to look. Each piece of land is considered a point. If you can connect all the points without drawing a line over another and without lifting the pencil from the paper, it's as if you walk through all the bridges. Four Eyes are impressed, and the Viscount's wife says it's wonderful. A blonde woman says her friend is right. The boy really has a good brain. For some reason, she seems proud. Blair continues the explanation, saying one can only lead the bridges using the start or the end. A point formed by even numbers can be called a uniform point. Brittany adds, saying that if all the numbers are even, the 7 points of the capital can be resolved. Observing from afar, the boy continues seriously and says his teacher is correct. Four Eyes tries to question something, but the final definition is that it is impossible to reach the end and then return to the start without repeating the 7 bridges. In short, it's impossible to solve. The onlookers are left speechless after hearing this. Blair says this is a 100% impeccable argument. Feige says this is all nonsense. The family is being plagued by noble gossip. He yells, telling everyone not to believe Blair. But of course, after this absurd argument, everyone looks at him with disdain. A woman says that the Howard family patriarchs deceived scholars for centuries. Because of this statement, Feige's mind collapses. He then looks at his father, asking if he's not going to do something, but the Viscount doesn't wait for good news and punches his son in the cheek. Feige falls to the ground, all battered by the blow. Then the man tells Feige to shut up because he is a failure, and adds that the boy is a disgrace. From the corner of his eye, the man says he will make Blair pay for what he did. Our boy doesn't understand the reason for the resentment, but it seems the Viscount won't let this slide. Still, Blair calls him out, saying that he answered one of Feige's questions, and as one of the house rules, the boy should also answer one of his. Seeing his son on the ground, the Viscount realizes there's nothing to do, so he asks what the boy will say. Directly, Blair says it's simple and asks what the length of the diagonal of the square is. After hearing this, the Viscount is happy since his family is also famous for solving this kind of problem. His teacher questions the reason for such an easy question. The man replies that it's 2 and adds that this is common knowledge. Closing his eyes, our boy says the answer is wrong. He then says he wants to know the length of the actual diagonal. The Viscount is left speechless. The crowd starts gossiping about the matter. Of course, Blair knows the man won't answer. Although in his world, scientists were respected, most were unknown, and the public only cared about celebrity scandals. Even though not many know about mathematics, there are only high-level people here. The students present have contributed significantly, so it doesn't matter if they are noble or not. It turned out that they gathered and formed the School of Numbers. Everyone in the Howard family has great influence because it's the center of the academy, and even Isabel's father, the lord of the city, must show respect to them. This school integrates everything possible to deliver maximum knowledge to students. They believe that all mystical events can be discovered through numbers. Practically, it's like the ancient Pythagorean school founded by Pythagoras. It was once very powerful, but had a fatal flaw in its belief. In summary, everyone in this world believes only in whole numbers, like Pythagoras. The person who discovered decimal numbers was his student named Sapassos while trying to measure a diagonal. After this discovery, the school was shaken, leading to its end. The sex believers were horrified by this, so they decided to tie Sapassos up and throw him into the Aegean Sea. However, the truth cannot be hidden forever, and soon their descendants discovered it. Subsequent generations called these numbers irrational numbers. Soon human understanding expanded. Judging by the Viscount's expression, he must know about the existence of irrational numbers. But we see the man is sweating. Everyone is trying to find the correct number for the diagonal. Brittany asks, what the hell? This is because even she can't find it. Then the boy explains to her that this is a new number discovered long ago, but may have been covered up by others at the time. Feige sees his father's powerless image. Seeing that, he knows that perhaps today he won't leave with all his teeth. This elevates his anger toward Blair. Then he shouts, saying all this happened because of him. Therefore, he must die immediately. He then runs towards the boy to attack him. Preparing himself, Blair positions to avoid being hit. Before anything happens, someone grabs his hand. With pure rage, she observes him. Feige yells for her to let go. But the woman apologizes and says she must stop the boy from doing something impulsive. Still, the boy tries to free his arm. But he realizes she is too strong. Behind him, his father yells furiously. Trembling, the Viscount asks if he knows how many misfortunes he caused today. The boy remains silent but continues to stare at Blair. Quickly, the man calls everyone's attention. He then says he deeply regrets this terrible incident and promises that from now on, he will discipline his son thoroughly. Additionally, regarding Blair's question, he will send the answer in a few days. He thanks everyone for their guidance and takes his leave, telling Blair to enjoy himself at the mansion tonight. In his mind, the boy knows it will be difficult to find the answer, but he trusts the Howards. Leaving, the Viscount is unsatisfied with everything as he was humiliated by a child. Blair thanks the lady who helped him. The woman asks if he has forgotten her. Isabel appears, hitting our boy. Then she asks how he could flirt with another person besides her, and of course, Blair doesn't understand a word of what she said. The woman lets out a relaxed smile. She then says she was joking, but it's admirable how the girl flirts. She adds that the relationship between the two is so close it's enviable. Isabel tries to retort to Alice, but ends up fumbling her words. Then she questions the reason for her presence. Alice responds that she has always participated in meetings like this, but it's the first time she's seen Isabel here. Brittany says that Alice's family is famous in the city of Yapo, and she always attends exchange meetings as a representative. Extending her hand, the woman reintroduces herself to Blair. They both greet each other and exchange jokes. Alice leans in a bit to observe the boy closely. She then seductively asks if she could inquire about mathematical questions alone with him in the future. Blair swiftly refuses after hearing her question. With a stern and dumbfounded face, he reiterates his rejection with more respect. He explains that she should discuss such problems with Miss Brittany, since he claims that his ideas are inspired by her. Alice chuckles for a bit and calls him unpredictable. She then proceeds to bid goodbye as she tells him that they should have a good chat when there is no one around him next time. Once she leaves, Isabella starts to pout and gets mad about Alice trying to seduce Blair while Brittany simply waves her goodbye. Isabella also scolds Blair for almost being seduced and accuses him of wanting to follow her. He defends himself by telling her that there is no reason for him to follow her. She nags him and says that he is just like every boy that gets all excited when pretty girls approach them. Blair rebuts and asks her smoothly if Alice is as beautiful as her. She blushes at his question and also asks him if he thinks that Alice is prettier. He bluntly replies that he thinks Isabella is prettier, which makes her flustered and unable to talk back anymore. Blair thinks to himself that she is being too persistent and that his answer was truthful since they were talking about the face and not the body. While Isabella is elated by their exchange, a person suddenly approaches and greets them. The man is Vice President Calvin, so Brittany asks why he came. Calvin states that the three of them are the talk of the party, so he had to come to see what the ruckus was all about. Blair tells him that he is over-exaggerating and that he was simply helping to solve the problem that was presented, then ask questions afterward. The vice president informs him that the problems he solved and the questions he raised weren't simple at all. Solving the 7 bridges of the royal capital has been the greatest honor of the Howard family, but his argument today could lead to their fall. And the number he mentioned could also cause the number school to fall since it directly goes against their foundations, which would shake the entire mathematics community. He then sharply focuses his gaze on him and asks who he really is, since there must be a reason that such talent was only recently revealed. His suspicions grow and he also inquires about his purpose, which takes them aback. But Blair simply brushes his questions off and tells him that it was Senior Feege who took the initiative to ask the question and he simply had an idea, so he helped him answer it, adding that the number he inquired about was only due to curiosity and that the Viscount already told them that he could find the number. Calvin thinks deeply and decides to believe Blair's statements, then assures him that the Mathematical Society is always on the side of the truth. As Blair was feeling relieved that he managed to escape his questions, the vice president raises a warning to him. He ominously states that he should be careful of the Howards since they are a lot of trouble to deal with. The scene cuts to the Viscount sitting calmly on a sofa while Fiji is shivering on the floor after seemingly being beaten. He struggles to catch his breath as his body is covered with bruises. An ominous man informs the Viscount that everything is now ready and they can execute the plan at any time. The Viscount orders the man to wait until Blair leaves the manor and make his death look like an accident, just like how they did before. The ominous man bows and follows his orders. But suddenly a voice talks to the Viscount and calls him father, stating that he is planning to kill again. Behind them, there is a mysterious man dressed in white that they haven't noticed yet. The Viscount looks behind him and recognizes the man as his son Abel. He then asks why he is still alive after all this time, but he stays silent. The assassin says that it's impossible that he lives since he made sure he was dead, though Abel ignores him and tells the Viscount that it's normal that he didn't expect him to be alive, since he knew that his father is the one that gave the order, like how he is doing right now. The Viscount flies into a rage and accuses him of conspiring with Blair, but Abel simply criticizes him for being cruel to his kin even to this day. His father pulls out a flintlock gun and threatens to shoot him if he does not tell his true goal while Fiji regains his consciousness. Abel finally speaks up and states that the Viscount always asks too many questions that he does not know where to start. He stands up while saying that he will explain, that the young man named Blair does not have connections to him whatsoever, but he provided him a good opportunity to finally come back to the family. The reason he came back, however, is to change the entire Howard family from the ground up. The Viscount is puzzled by his goals and questions if he really plans to change the family. Abel confirms his question and asks what the current cornerstones of the family are. His father states that it is honor, which his son sternly denies, and that his words are nothing but lies. The Viscount is irritated and asks why that is. Abel answers that it is due to the fact that the Viscount already knew that the Seven Bridges mystery has no solution and the number Blair stated cannot be expressed in real numbers. He adds that the Viscount also hid the truth in order to maintain the so-called honor of the family and the number school. And not only that, he also killed those who wanted to reveal the truth to the public in various ways, which included Abel, his own biological son. Viscount Howard has now snapped and orders him to stop talking, and states that he will kill him once again for the sake of the family. Abel persuades his father by reminding him of what he said, that the truth will come out sooner or later, which will lead to the Howard family being wiped out. And today the boy named Blair did just that and burst their family's bubble in front of the entire mathematics community. He then challenges him if he can get rid of all the people who now know the truth. Abel swiftly grabs the Viscount's gun, then points it to his own heart while taunting his father that if he can't hide the truth tomorrow, everyone will know their secrets and the family will be overthrown. The Viscount's hand shakes in the face of Abel's continuous threats. He then finally lets go of his gun in resignation as his son takes it from him. Viscount Howard desperately asks Abel what they can do in order to prevent such a future. His son answers, saying that he will replace him as the patriarch and change the entire Howard family so that they can survive. He menacingly tells his father that only he himself can save the entire family. The Viscount becomes silent after being taken aback by his statement, then breaks out in cold sweat once his son whispers his plans to him. A few days later at Brittany's residence, Blair wakes up from his slumber to an obnoxiously loud alarm clock by his bed. He revels at the fact that he can now sleep in a cozy bed with no odors, unlike the utility room where he used to stay. Blair heads outside of his room while being half awake and goes to greet Brittany good morning. But he notices something in her room. There is a pile of papers arranged on her desk. He is shocked at the sheer amount of papers she wrote and realizes that Brittany stayed up late last night trying to calculate the number once again. Since after the mathematics exchange meeting, there have been questions over the Howard family's credibility due to the truth he revealed regarding the Seven Bridges mystery. However, what's even more shocking is the number he mentioned that cannot be expressed using rational numbers, leading others to call it the devil's number. And almost all of the scholars have been trying to figure out the number, but they can't express it no matter how hard they try. Blair thinks that it is only natural, since it is impossible to express it using rational numbers, and that irrational numbers are a foreign field, which this world has never explored. But even so, he respects the efforts of the scholars of this world, and he believes that they will figure out their solution eventually, just like in his own world. As he looks forward to the future, a dove flies in the distance, signaling a new chapter in his life. Blair takes a look at the papers on the desk and sees something that catches his attention. It is a newspaper containing news about the Howard family changing their patriarch, and the new patriarch has also announced that he will dissolve the number school. Blair thinks that abandoning the school is indeed the best choice for the Howard family and wonders what suddenly changed inside the family for them to react so decisively. As he imagines what the new patriarch might look like, Brittany walks up from behind while lightly dressed. She says good morning to Blair while she rubs her face, seemingly still half awake. He returns her greeting while looking enamored at her seductive figure before him, though she doesn't seem to realize how lightly dressed she is. She also scolds Blair for not waking her up like she told him to do last night, to which he simply states that he forgot to do so while trying to avoid looking at her body. Brittany teases him and calls him a bad boy, causing him to become flustered. She adds that she knows that he didn't really forget, and also seductively states that she also knows that he knows the number, and sweetly tells him to stop teasing her, with her breasts nearly popping out, which causes Blair to have a nosebleed. Brittany notices that his nose is bleeding and finally realizes what she is wearing. She becomes frozen in embarrassment, then proceeds to slap Blair in the face, calling him a pervert. After their awkward interaction, they then head to the kitchen for Blair to make breakfast while having her handprint on his cheek. Brittany feels a bit of guilt for slapping him and apologizes to him, saying that it was a subconscious reaction from her. Blair points out that she has a different personality after waking up, causing her to become a bit embarrassed. So she asks if she is annoying when she just woke up, but is surprised when Blair answers no, nonchalantly adding that he doesn't dislike her either way, causing Brittany to blush a bit after hearing his answer. She then thanks him for understanding, while Blair feels proud of himself for smoothly diffusing the situation. As he cooks their breakfast, Brittany asks why he is mixing the red fruits with the eggs, so he answers by telling her that he is making scrambled eggs. She is confused since she doesn't know what he is talking about, as it doesn't exist in their world yet. He finishes cooking and sets the delicious eggs onto the plate. As he finishes up the dish, he explains that the red fruits are called tomatoes, which are used to make everyone's favorite scrambled eggs in his hometown. He also remembers that this is also the dish he always used to make. After making breakfast, Blair heads to his class and tells her to try it herself. Brittany asks him to wait for a bit, Then she wipes a stain on his shirt with a clean cloth. Blair is suddenly taken aback since he didn't expect her to get this close and proceeds to blush while frozen in place. She finishes cleaning his shirt, and it is now sparkling clean. Brittany then reminds him to be careful as he goes off to school. After Blair leaves, she's left alone at the table, wondering if the eggs are really edible due to their weird appearance. She takes a spoonful of the eggs and tries it out, and becomes shocked at its taste. The fragrance of the eggs makes her mouth water, and the sweetness of the tomato that is fresh and refreshing causes her to curl her feet in delight. She shivers as she revels in the taste of the scrambled eggs, which is out of this world for her. Meanwhile, Blair's stomach is grumbling at school, since he forgot to eat breakfast after leaving so early in the morning. In class, the girls are talking about the new head of the Howard family and praise his good looks. They also talk about the mysterious person who solved the 7 bridges and proposed the devil's number before disappearing. One of the girls states she heard from her uncle that the boy who solved it is the same age as them and also requested to stay anonymous. The blonde girl states that she can't believe that the one who shook the entire mathematics community is the same age as them. And if she had to guess, then the person must have been an old man. While the girls are gossiping in the background, Isabella asks Blair if he really doesn't know how to express the devil's number. Blair answers nonchalantly that he doesn't know everything, and that he already said everything he knows. She frustratedly slams her hand onto the desk as she accuses him of lying once again, but someone suddenly tells her off for troubling Blair. The person is Alice, who has just recently entered the room and greets them good morning. She also sends a flying kiss at Blair, which takes him by surprise. Isabella asks her why she is here since she is a 3rd year, while Blair returns her greeting kindly. The other boys notice the 2 beauties of the school and become jealous of his luck, causing the boy with freckles to also wonder why he is suddenly in luck. Jasmine also notices the pretty girls and looks back at them. Alice suddenly gets close to Blair and asks about the devil's number, causing him to become nervous due to their proximity. His stomach rumbles loudly once again due to his nervousness, which made him embarrassed as the others were taken aback. He apologizes for his stomach suddenly grumbling. Alice softly grins at his embarrassment, while Isabella calls him a pig for being so hungry this early in the morning. Alice pulls out a delicious-looking bread and presents it to Blair. She states that she accidentally brought extra lunch and asks him to help her finish it. Blair's mouth waters after seeing the bread in front of him. He finally resigns and decides to accept it, as he thanks Alice for the bread and calls her a good friend. Isabella pulls on his cheek and stops him from eating the bread he got, and scolds him for accepting food from strangers. Blair tells her that he tried to reject her, but the bread looked too delicious to pass by. She gets even more mad and states that he should have asked her first for food. He rebuts and says that she'd just call him a pig again if he asked for food, to which Isabella shouts at him saying that she doesn't care. Alice interrupts their conversation, stating that it is only natural for her to give him assistance since he is a once-in-a-lifetime genius. Isabella gets irritated by her statement and decides to hand Blair an extra bread that she just so happens to have brought, adding that he should just return the bread he got from Alice. Blair becomes a bit confused at her sudden kindness. Alice teases her for interfering with his choice and points out that they are not in such a relationship for her to be jealous. Isabella gets even more irritated at the details she pointed out and tells Blair that he should make a choice, to choose between her and Alice's bread, and he can only choose one. Alice comforts him and tells him that it's okay to choose what he likes even if it's hers. Tensions rise as the 2 girls stare down at each other, with Blair unable to have a quiet meal. As the 2 antagonize each other, Blair struggles to find a way to defuse the situation. He decides to accept Isabella's bread and takes it from her hand. She shows off and celebrates that her bread is better than Alice's, who is now also irritated. But Blair shoves both pieces of bread in his mouth. As he tries to swallow the bread, he starts to sweat profusely and almost chokes in the process. The bread finally reaches his throat and starts to go down to his stomach. He successfully ate both pieces of bread and complimented the 2 for their delicious bread, with tears running down his face. His classmates who witnessed the scene are starting to worry about him due to the stunt he just pulled. Isabella gets all elated thinking that he wolfed down her bread due to its deliciousness. On the other hand, Alice wipes off the crumb of bread on Blair's face and starts to put it in her mouth while seductively looking at him. As she licks the crumbs off her finger, she also lightly scolds Blair for being careless. Isabella is now engulfed in the flames of her own anger due to Alice flirting with Blair. Suddenly, the bell rings and Alice realizes that it's time for class. She then bids goodbye to Blair. He returns it as well while looking like a pervert. Isabella notices his perverted gaze and points at him, menacingly stating that she will wait for him after class, to which he has no choice but to agree. Isabella then gets out of the room and slams the door in rage. Blair is now relieved after the 2 girls left and breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, a big hand pinches his cheek while calling his name. It was Toby, and he asks when he got to know Alice. Blair answers that he met her the other night. Toby becomes surprised that he met her at night and misunderstands the situation. Blair clears it up by telling him that he met her at an academic conference of the Math Association that Miss Brittany took him to. Toby remembers the news about the conference and asks him if it was the one where the devil's number was uncovered, but Blair interrupts and tells him that Brittany has arrived. During class, he once again solves the problems on the board with ease. Brittany tells the class that it's time for them to discuss the question on the blackboard with their respective groups. She then whispers to Blair and hands him a piece of bread, so he asks what it is for. She tells him that it's for his breakfast since he didn't eat in the morning. He sweats profusely at the thought of eating bread again after munching down on it earlier. Blair then heads to his group for the discussion. Toby asks why he has bread again after seeing it in his hands. He avoids the question and decides to have the discussion first, but a girl in his group suddenly slams the desk with her hands. The pink-haired girl who slammed the desk then asks Blair who the mysterious man at the conference was, since she heard from Toby that he was present that day. He looks over at Toby, who is avoiding his gaze as he tries to brush off her question by saying that he only sort of saw the person. The pink-haired girl asks how he sort of saw him. Meanwhile, Jasmine seems to be thinking of something. Blair explains that he was absent when the mysterious man stood up. Then when he got back, the venue was a mess and he couldn't find the man anywhere. The girl asks why he left the venue at such an important moment. He answers with an excuse, saying that he had diarrhea from eating too much, which made all of them silent. Toby states while picking his nose that he can't believe that he wasted such a good chance. The girl tells him off, saying that it was enough that Blair was able to be qualified to attend such an event since only rich or noble people can attend it. She also requests Blair to go to her house to be a math tutor since she still has a lot of questions, and if he gets tired then he can easily rest in their big manor. Toby is skeptical of her intentions and asks if she really just wants to learn math, which makes her angry, and she states that she is just studious. Meanwhile, Jasmine looks at them, appearing all irritated. Time passes, and it's finally time for the bells to ring again, signaling for the classes to end. Blair lets out a deep breath after managing to evade Isabella after class, and decides to practice magic in the meantime. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him and asks when he was so interested in practicing magic. He wonders who it is and spots a hooded figure in front of him. Then the person lunges a knife at him from nowhere. While the knife is aimed at his neck, he asks who the person threatening him is. The person in front of him is a blue-haired woman wearing a hoodie to conceal her identity. This person is revealed to be Jasmine, and she orders him not to move since the dagger she is holding is very sharp. Blair asks what compelled her to do such a thing, but she interrupts him midway. She then states that Blair is the one who solved the 7 bridges and proposed the devil's number, so she wonders why his math and magic powers have grown rapidly. Jasmine yells at him and accuses him of impersonating Blair since he has all that talent that he previously didn't have. Blair finally speaks and tells her that she has so many questions to the point that he doesn't even know where to start, so he introduces himself again. As he thinks that he should mention that he came from another world, Jasmine suddenly pulls his cheeks after mistakenly thinking that he has a disguise. She states that his disguise will be revealed with her technique, no matter how perfect it is. But she is met with surprise, since his face was still normal even after she applied her technique, with only his face hurting as a result. Blair kicks her foot in retaliation, causing her to stumble and fall towards the ground. She panics after she loses her footing and realizes that she is going to fall, so she simply braces for the oncoming impact. But surprisingly, she stopped falling as her eyes opened, since Blair managed to catch her right before she was about to fall. She blushes for a bit seeing the close distance between them, though Blair keeps a straight face unfazed. Jasmine snaps out of it and finally tells him to let go, so he complies as per her request. But in return, he orders her not to point the spoon he previously mistook for a dagger at his neck. He also firmly states that he really is Blair. Jasmine is still flustered and says that he should let go before anything else. After he lets go, she asks how he is suddenly so gifted with magic and math and also speaks very differently from the original Blair despite not having a disguise. He explains that he really is Blair but not the same one she knows and that he only woke up like that after a long dream. Blair starts to tell her about his original world and how it has no magic but very advanced technology. The people in his world didn't know how to use magic since they only saw it as fiction and nothing else. But instead, the science and technology in that world skyrocketed even beyond magic, and people can use various technological creations to complete tasks that magic cannot. Relying on that advanced technology, their people also extended their exploration outside the planet and can travel through the stars and reach other planets. In that world, he was only a math teacher, which is the source of all the advanced mathematical knowledge he knows. During his class, one of the girls that resembled Jasmine raised her hand to ask a question, so he entertained it. The student asked if the starry skies could really be traversed, and if so, are there other planets beyond the stars? He answered the question properly, stating that they can indeed travel through the starry sky, and that there are also countless planets in the universe. Though he answered properly, the students still made fun of him for being a lame teacher, which embarrassed him to the point that he didn't know what to say next. As he remembered the past, the sun was slowly starting to go down outside the building. The light from the windows slowly went down as a sign that the moon was about to come out. Blair apologizes to Jasmine after he cut his past short, saying that he woke up after that long ordeal and simply woke up with his current talent for math and magic, and that he also lost some of his memory, which makes Jasmine look a bit worried about him. He finishes all of his explanations, so now it is her turn to talk. But she has nothing more to say, Other than she now believes that he truly is Blair, which also seemed to talk about the same stuff he said from before. He asks her if he really said such things before, and she confirms, saying that he was more interested in science than magic back then. She also tells him that the past Blair also wished to live in a world without magic, partly due to his lack of magical talent. She believes that Blair has amnesia and assures him that she'll help him regain his memories. Blair goes along with her and thanks her for all of her help while shaking her hand. This causes her to become flustered. She panics and blurts out that she promises to bring his memories back so he can rest easy. Sometime later inside the academy, Blair is walking in the hallway. Then he stops to think about something deeply, but someone suddenly grabs him from behind. It's his friend Toby, and he also pulls him off the floor. They quarrel for a bit while Toby grabs him tightly, but someone approaches them from a distance. Blair notices the man stalking them and asks him to introduce himself. He also manages to escape from Toby, so he punctures his nose with his 2 fingers. The man who was watching them is Senior Feige, which Toby quickly recognizes. So he asks what he is scheming again since he is being very suspicious. But Feige simply bows his head to them and apologizes for his mistakes back at the manor. He states that he sincerely apologizes and asks him to be able to forgive his wrongdoings. The other students see the scene and wonder what's happening. Blair also wonders and asks what he should forgive him for since he genuinely does not remember, which causes the girls in the crowd to start speculating why Feige is suddenly apologizing. Senior Feige hands him something, stating that his brother, who is the new patriarch, wanted to give it to him as an invitation, since he is going to hold an explanatory meeting for the entire kingdom's mathematics community tonight. As he bows down to Blair, he is filled with frustration, but he keeps it hidden as he tries to get Blair to come to the meeting. Toby advises him not to go since he speculates that the senior is up to no good again. Blair thinks for a bit after reading the invitation, but he ultimately decides to go to the mansion despite the risks. At the meeting, it is full of rich-looking people who each have their own conversations with someone. Blair is intimidated by the massive mansion, but he decides to follow through due to his curiosity. Suddenly, someone pinches his ear, which startles him with pain. He realizes that it was none other than Isabella, who happened to just arrive at the conference, and she scolds him for not waiting for her in the classroom. Miss Pretty also arrives and is also surprised that he came as well. With her full seductive body in view, she tells him that they were looking for him at the academy earlier. Blair asks if she also received the invitation. She states that there has been news that the Howard family will hold a meeting this night, so it was only natural that she and almost all of the mathematics community would come. And that almost all of the people in the math circle came, but no one received an invitation like he did. Blair finds it strange that he is the only one to receive an invitation, so he wonders what it's for. But someone suddenly interrupts him and plays with his ear, which causes his face to turn red. It's Alice, who also attended the event, and she rubs his ear while making fun of Isabella, which makes her mad in more ways than one. Isabella glares at Alice and tells her that she obviously didn't put any force in pulling his ear, but she says that it's all red, so it must have hurt. Blair gets nervous after seeing the two face off again and braces for impact. But Miss Pretty interrupts their scuffle, and she asks all of them to come to the briefing, though they are still glaring at each other. As they walk into the venue, Blair suddenly notices something on the wall. It's that the Seven Bridges painting has been taken down, leaving only a blank picture frame behind. Brittany looks at the empty frame and wonders what Abel did to solve the current situation. Blair asks her if she knows Abel since she mentioned his name, but she says that it was nothing deep, and that she only used to be classmates with Abel, and he was also going to become a teacher in the academy, but he suddenly disappeared 3 years ago. She was also surprised when she learned that he was the new head of the Howard family, which made Blair ask what kind of person Abel is. Brittany thinks for a bit, then she answers that he was a person who only had mathematics in his eyes. In a room inside the mansion, Abel sits at his desk while looking at some paperwork. Feige informs him that everyone has arrived and is waiting for him to show up at the venue. But Abel simply tells his brother that he has never been in love since he doesn't know that being late to a date increases their date's expectations. He also asks Feige if the man he talked about arrived. Feige anxiously answers, saying that there were so many people, so he couldn't really be sure if Blair was there. Abel puts his hand on his brother's shoulder and assures him that he is not like their father, so he doesn't need to be afraid anymore. He then tells him that they should now go to the venue, in order for them to start a new chapter in the Howard family. At the main venue, there are crowds of people socializing. Suddenly, a man spots someone in the distance. It is the Howard brothers, which causes him to announce to everyone that they have finally arrived. Despite having a large audience, Abel still walks gracefully and as calm as a rock while his brother nervously struts behind him. The people at the venue look at the new head and realize that he is still very young. Abel then starts off the meeting by greeting the guests, stating that he is thankful to them for coming for the briefing. He introduces himself as Abel Howard and respectfully bows down before the guests while also thanking them. Brittany notices that Abel has changed from 3 years ago in both dress and speech. Abel pulls out a book from his coat and tells the audience that he will get to the point quickly, since they have been waiting for so long already, though he states that he will open up about his family's past first. Blair notices the book he is holding in his hand and wonders what the book contains. Abel states that this book contains a note from the first patriarch of the Howard family, which entails the truth that has been hidden by their family for so long. The note states that the first patriarch tried to solve the 7 bridges mystery back then by repeatedly walking the 7 bridges like the other scholars at the time. Although he didn't find a solution for a long time, the first patriarch was fully determined not to give up. But one day, he discovered that he had successfully completed a non-repetitive move. This caused him to announce his success on the spot and promise everyone that he would demonstrate the moves he made the following morning. The first patriarch was so proud at that time, so much so that he didn't verify his findings first before announcing to the public. But during the night, when he came to the bridge to confirm his findings, he finally realized that he had made a crucial mistake. It's the fact that he didn't succeed in finding a solution but only misremembered the route he took, which caused him to think that he found a route with no repetition. He realized that he would become a laughingstock in the morning after making such a tragic mistake. So he committed suicide due to his great shame and in order to atone for his mistake to the public. And at the same time, he also left a note which recorded his mistaken findings in detail and asked future generations to clarify the facts to the public on his behalf. But his descendants did not follow his orders and instead hid the notes from the public, making it seem that the patriarch accidentally fell into the water with all the proof he had. They did all that in order to maintain the so-called honor of the family until today. After telling the story, Abel stands resolute in front of the large audience, telling all of them that the truth cannot be hidden forever and that the Howard family will face the truth and the backlash that they will receive. He then humbly bows again to ask for their forgiveness. Feige is shocked at his brother's bravery and attempts to stop him, but he quickly changes his mind. Abel clearly apologizes to everyone on behalf of the whole Howard family. The people in the meeting are shocked at his revelation, and they start talking among themselves. Blair sees his decision on the matter and deduces that the new patriarch is very decisive, saying that the Howard family lied about the 7 bridges mystery. He is impressed to see that Abel actually revealed the truth, which will cause more responsibility for future generations, but the first patriarch's honor was preserved. The lady with the top hat asks if Abel disbanded the Numbers faction a few days ago as atonement for the family's lie. The new patriarch informs her that it was indeed a form of atonement, but there is a different main reason, which was the so-called Devil's Number. The lady asks if he still hasn't found the number yet. Abel answers, saying that they haven't found the number yet, but it's not because of the limitation of his abilities. He announced that it is due to the fact that the Devil's Number does not exist, which surprised Blair. The other guests ask him to clarify what he just said. Abel tells them that the number doesn't exist in their existing mathematical cognition system, which was also the reason why he disbanded the Numbers sect. A nerdy boy from the crowd asks if the Devil's Number is incomprehensible. Abel reveals that the Devil's Number isn't unsolvable at all, but instead it is a whole new area that the mathematics group still hasn't explored yet. He states that the solution for the community to solve this mystery is to question the one who proposed the number in the first place, which is Blair from Street Donna's Academy. The crowd starts talking among themselves once again as they wonder who Blair really is. Abel continues his statements and says that they don't recognize Blair since he is very humble with his discoveries, so he asked everyone to hide his name. But Abel firmly tells them that they need Blair to step up and lead them in order to greatly improve the mathematics community. Brittany looks behind her to talk to Blair and asks him what he plans to do, but he is nowhere to be found, with no one having any idea where he suddenly went. Feige informs his older brother that Blair doesn't seem to be in the area. Abel tells him that he mistakenly thought that Blair wouldn't be able to hold back his curiosity and step up by himself. But he also states that he will come to him sooner or later with a confident look on his face, which causes Feige to be a bit taken aback by his brother's statements. Later at school, the girls in the class are gossiping about something. They are gossiping about Blair, who was revealed to be the one that proposed the Devil's Number, and that people are asking him to address the problem at hand. Blair is troubled by the fact that Abel managed to shift the attention to him instead of the Howard family. Suddenly, Toby pokes him from his side while calling him. Blair responds quickly and says that he doesn't know anything despite Toby not saying anything yet, but he simply points to something in front of them. Blair looks over to see what it is, and sees a massive man who is also their history professor named Hank, which makes him panic since he wasn't paying attention. Hank tells him that he knows that he is good at mathematics, but he asks if he has a problem with him since he keeps failing his history tests every single time. Blair makes an excuse saying that his memory of the subject is still hazy, so he can't recall it. Hank slams his palm on his desk, which startles him quite a lot. The teacher then scolds him while shouting that he still needs to focus on his studies even if he is famous now. Toby raises his hand nervously and informs the teacher that someone is looking for Blair. Hank shouts at him for interrupting, but Toby continues to point at the person looking for Blair. The teacher explicitly states that no one is allowed to interrupt the lesson he is teaching, not even the vice president Calvin. Calvin comes up from behind and grabs his shoulder, then states that he is the one looking for Blair, which startles him. He begins to double down on his words and finally lets Blair go. They go to the hallway after leaving the classroom. A man dressed the same as Calvin also tags along. The vice president greets him once again with a warm smile on his face. Blair looks defeated as he realizes that he came to him for the Devil's Number. Calvin states that the outside world is waiting for him to stand up and solve the devil's number, which puts them under pressure, so they have no choice but to ask for help. Blair thinks for a bit before answering, but he is interrupted by the man next to the vice president, saying that they really need his help and that it brings no harm to him either. Blair bluntly tells them that he really doesn't want to help with a bright smile on his face. A while later, Toby is in a rush and suddenly opens the door, which was Miss Brittany's office, so she becomes puzzled as to why he is in such a rush. She asks him what he is rushing for as he tries to catch his breath. Toby tells her in a panic that Blair was suddenly taken away, which causes her to become worried. Meanwhile, inside the meeting room at the school, a handful of people are on standby in front of the door. The people are all scholars and officials of the math circle, which gather around Blair, putting him under a ton of pressure. Among them are the 4 associate deans of the academy, and also the 3 vice presidents of the Mathematical Society. Blair also realizes that there are more than a dozen association deacons waiting outside the door as well. He states that he knows that Vice President Calvin planned to pressure him in order to agree to tell them about the devil's number. Calvin tells him that he has released such a devilish problem, which is also his responsibility since he started it. Blair responds by asking why they are so inclined to call the truth devilish. The deans of the school are triggered by his statement, but Calvin doesn't let them talk. He then asks Blair if the devil's number really could not be expressed as a ratio of whole numbers, to which he replies saying that it's not only the devil's number. The square root of 2, 3, and 5 are also numbers that can't be expressed as a ratio of integers. He states that there are an infinite amount of numbers that can't be proved mathematically, and he can only tell them a little. The mature-looking man asks what he meant by that, and also asks him how many centuries they have been wrong. Blair assures them that this is a very normal thing due to the nature of mathematics, which is constantly changing, and as long as they find proof, they can expand the numbers. Calvin pleads for his help after realizing that he truly knows the truth about the devil's number. But Blair refuses and apologizes, saying that he really can't help them with this. He also states that he knows what they are afraid of, which is the revelation that the truth they have believed for years will be overturned. Blair tells them that fear is normal, informing them that in his hometown, generations of people also challenge such problems in the pursuit of truth and knowledge. He explains that it's due to that fear of the unknown that they should want to understand it and embrace the truth, which is what their ancestors have done for so long. Blair tells them that he believes that the mathematics community will be able to face their fear and have the courage to overcome this challenge. After all, the hymn of man is the hymn of courage. The vice president is impressed by his words and is a bit taken aback. They then suddenly bow their heads to him, which seemingly startles Blair. Calvin says that he truly is right and apologizes for their brash behavior. He then thanks him for his guidance for the day and says that the mathematics community will always remember his contribution. Blair tries to assure them that it's all good, but the door suddenly flies into the room. A scholar is hit by the flying door and stumbles to the ground, and it also hits a chair on the way. They look at who caused the door to fly out at such speed. It is Brittany, who seems to be enraged due to the immense magic power she is letting out. She also readies 2 whirlwinds in her hands as she stands at the door menacingly. Brittany terrifyingly asks them what they did to Blair as she looks ready to attack at any moment. Blair raises his hands to call her. He then tells her that he is right there while she is flinging the scholars all over the room. Blair embarrassingly informs her that they only wanted to have a chat with him. Brittany becomes flustered after realizing such a fact and profusely apologizes to the deans. Calvin tells her that he understands since Blair is her beloved disciple and that it was also partly their fault for suddenly taking him away. She struggles to respond and just stands awkwardly in place. After the whole scuffle at the meeting room, they walk in the hallway as they are getting ready to go back home. She tells Blair that she impulsively went for him after hearing from Toby that he was taken since she thought that he was going to be harmed. He assures her that he can handle it in front of so many students in the school, no one would try anything on him. Brittany tells him that she has a question that she has been meaning to ask. Blair asks what it is she's wondering about. She continues and begins to ask him a question about why he came up with the devil's number to create such chaos in the math community. Blair tries to feign ignorance by saying that he was only following the mathematics tradition to ask a question. He just didn't expect that the question he asked would lead to the discovery of the devil's number, but his answer didn't seem to quell Brittany's curiosity. She then asks another question about if he likes Isabella while she looks away in embarrassment. Blair is confused by her question and doesn't know what to say. Miss Brittany mistakenly imagines that he got jealous of Feige, who was hitting on Isabella, so he confronted him with such a question. Brittany then grabs both of his shoulders. She then tells him that she won't tell anyone about such a thing, and that she also supports him, which makes Blair sweat profusely and try to clear up the misunderstanding. But she goes off to her office before he can even say anything. He tries to stop her with his stupid face, but to no avail, which causes him to be petrified in embarrassment due to her misunderstanding. That night, when they return home, Blair is cooking yet another meal from his hometown, while thinking that Brittany's imagination is so strong that he will try to explain it to her again later. But Isabella suddenly shows up and asks him what he is cooking, which makes him confused as to why she is suddenly there. Brittany tells him that she invited her since she wants to learn about the devil's number, and that he should let her try his cooking as well. He then asks if she majors in wind magic, to which Isabella answers, saying that Miss Brittany is a high-level magician of wind magic. Blair states that he wants to make a refrigerator, but he would need the help of a senior water magician for that. Brittany asks what it is after mishearing its name. Blair explains that it is a box made of ice which is used to preserve ingredients. Isabella also takes a look at the illustration he gave for the refrigerator, and they see a poorly drawn blueprint, which makes Isabella chuckle, before bursting out in laughter while making fun of his drawing. Blair angrily takes the drawing out of her hand as she makes fun of it. Meanwhile, Brittany seems to be focused on something and calls Blair. She then asks him if the structure she made using her powers is akin to what he had in mind for a refrigerator. Her eyes also glow in purple as she casts the spell to make it. Blair tells her that this is exactly what he had in mind and asks her how she managed to do it. She answers saying that she also knows water magic, so making ice structures is pretty easy for her. Isabella is shocked after seeing that she can cast more than one type of magic since there are only a handful of magicians who can do such a thing. Blair then asks why she stays at street donuts even after having such magical talent. Her face darkens a bit due to his question, and her eyes wander off to the pan. She then tells Blair that the food is ready to avoid his question, which is effective since he rushes to turn off the fire. They then set the table with all of the delicious food Blair made. Isabella says that it looks weird despite smelling good, to which Brittany tells her that she also thought the same, but she found out that it was really delicious. Blair states that the dishes are all from his hometown and that it was normal that Isabella hadn't tried them yet since he didn't invite her to eat them. Isabella hides the fact that she wants to eat the food and instead stubbornly tells him that she won't eat it, even if she starved to death today. But she quickly gives up later as they eat. She then licks her lips after tasting such savory dishes. Isabella is in a daze after finishing such delicious food. Blair mocks her and reminds her that she said that she wouldn't touch his food even if she was starving, which causes her to pull his ear, and nags him for making such delicious dishes as he screams in pain. Brittany laughs after witnessing such a lively scene. Blair asks what the matter is. She answers saying that she really thinks that they are a good match, which causes the two to freeze in place after hearing her words. Isabella turns away and states that she doesn't match such a pervert at all. Blair also turns away and states that he also doesn't match such an arrogant girl. Brittany then announces that Isabella will be promoted to a junior magician soon, so she asks her what department she plans to specialize in the future. She tells her that she wants to specialize in wind magic just like Miss Brittany. Brittany explains that wind magic is indeed powerful in the later stages, but before becoming a high-level wind user, she would not have much combat power. And she advises her that as a girl, she should be able to protect herself. So she tells her to consider the earth element, which is the strongest in defense among the four elements. But Isabella complains, saying that the earth magic robe is too ugly for her. Blair makes fun of her in his mind after hearing her response. She then pulls his ear again. Blair shouts, asking why she is grabbing his ear again despite not saying anything yet, to which she responds, saying that she knows that he made fun of her in his mind. Brittany then asks him what department he is going to specialize in. He thinks for a bit, before gracefully answering that he wants to choose all of the departments. Isabella laughs at him for dreaming of such a thing that even Miss Brittany couldn't achieve. Brittany then notices something. She says that Blair's words might not be a pointless dream. Isabella tells her that he was just talking nonsense, so why was she taking him so seriously? Brittany explains that the magic elements around him give people a strange feeling, but she feels a dense energy. She thinks that he might be able to have an affinity with all four of the elements at the same time. Brittany then states that they should forget about all that stuff for now and that she will guide him in his magic since he guided her in math. The two students are enjoyed due to her words, though Brittany also states that they can't rely too much on magic in order to be a good magician, because although the gods have given them the ability to cast magic, magic spells and gestures exist which can leave the magician with no opportunity to cast. And in order to make up for such a shortcoming, they need to practice martial arts in order to deal with situations where they have no time to cast magic. She demonstrates her magic by cleaning the dishes, which impresses Blair with its convenience. Brittany also informs them that there are many cases where fighting ability is more important than magic, so she will teach them about fighting before magic, which causes Blair to be surprised after learning that she can also fight. Isabella tells her that she learned martial arts at home, so she asks her to let her and Blair try it first so he can have an intuitive understanding of combat. Brittany agrees and reminds her not to hurt Blair. Isabella replies, saying that she will show him mercy while secretly thinking that she won't lose to him in martial arts. Blair then gets a bit nervous seeing her prepare herself. They head to a training room after they get ready. Isabella taunts him, saying that he shouldn't let her make him cry. Then she swiftly dashes to attack him, but he is still dead calm. She reaches him and throws a punch, but he manages to skillfully dodge her attack. In the dead of night inside the training room, the two fight continuously as they swiftly move across the room. Blair then grabs her wrists, which causes her to lose her balance. He then manages to incapacitate her in one swift motion. She is stuck in a revealing position, so she calls him a pervert and orders him to let go. He tells her that for him to let her go. She still has to do something, but she suddenly launches a kick straight to his face. Though her sneak attack is not successful, seeing that he managed to dodge it. Blair then swiftly attacks her with wind magic, which causes her to lose her footing. She loses her balance again and falls to the ground. She screams in panic at her impending fall, but surprisingly, she didn't fall to the ground, since Blair managed to catch her in the nick of time by grabbing onto her hips. Brittany interrupts their moment by asking Blair something. She asks where Blair learned martial arts. He states, while still holding Isabella, that he didn't study it formally but was interested in fighting, so he practiced Sanda for a while in his hometown. She then asks what it is. She also asks about his hometown since he has mentioned it multiple times. As he struggles to answer her question, Isabella reaches for his ears once again, and pulls on them after he still didn't let go, so he finally lets her down. She pouts while saying that the only reason she lost this time was due to her slipping on the ground. Brittany is intrigued by his martial arts and asks him to try it on her. He states that Sanda isn't very easy to control, seeing that he almost hit Isabella, but Brittany assures him that he shouldn't worry about it. Blair decides to do what she says and reminds her to be careful as he readies his fists. He then lunges straight at Miss Brittany, but she sees his attack coming and puts up her guard. He sees her balloons bouncing, which causes him to remember what his Santa coach once said. It's that when he is fighting against a real master, he will not have time to understand what happened to him. He didn't believe it at the time, but this time he was sure of it after she strikes his neck, which causes him to lose consciousness. Brittany catches him to prevent him from falling and sets him down gently on the floor. Isabella panics and asks her what happened to Blair and if he is alright. Brittany tells her that she truly does care about him and informs her that he only lost consciousness for a while and will wake up later. Isabella becomes flustered after what she just said and tries to deny it, but Brittany tells her that she knows that she likes Blair, which warrants a surprise reaction from Isabella. She desperately tries to deny liking such a pervert and asks her to stop spouting such nonsense. Brittany tells her that she shouldn't deny it since she doesn't see it as a wrong thing to do. She tells her that she too is the same as her, but something suddenly interrupts the both of them. It's Blair, who is groping Brittany unconsciously, which causes Isabella to become shocked. She becomes surprised, thinking that he was awake all along, but he is only starting to wake up. The next day, Blair is covered with bandages and he complains that it hurts. Toby asks him what's up and if last night was so intense that he got hurt sleeping at Miss Brittany's house, but he makes an excuse, saying that he accidentally fell. But in truth, it's due to a violent woman who suddenly pinned him to the ground right after he woke up after mistakenly thinking that he groped Miss Brittany on purpose. He tells her to stop since his hand is about to break, while Brittany weakly asks her to let go. But in the end, she ended up breaking his hand due to her extreme strength. He also realized that Brittany had such strong fighting skills and deduced that she must have received formal combat training for a long time. Since in this world, a normal family wouldn't have the right conditions to receive combat training from an early age, let alone magic and mathematics. So he truly wonders where she came from. Suddenly, Toby interrupts his train of thought, saying that he has finally mastered the trick of summoning 2 fireballs that Blair taught him. Blair is surprised to see that he mastered it so fast, so Toby volunteers to show him what he can do. He then starts to cast the spell, and he charges up his flame energy from within. Blair becomes excited to see what he can do. Toby then finishes casting and activates the fireball. Blair is shocked to see what he can do, not because it was impressive, but due to the fact that it's disappointing. He shows him once again the little flames he managed to muster with all his strength. Looking at the 2 tiny flames he made, Blair comforts him by saying that his magical power is indeed higher than what it used to be. He hides the fact that he was disappointed by his technique, so he doesn't say anything more. Suddenly, a cake appears in front of him. It's being given by Alice, who recently heard that he was injured, so she brought a cake for him to eat. She guesses that he didn't bring any lunch today, which is the reason she also brought the cake. Alice then scares away Toby, saying that he must have eaten already, so he leaves Blair and tells him to eat, and that he has somewhere he should be. Though Blair is entranced by the food, he tries to refuse, saying that he feels indebted for always eating her food. Alice asks if the cake is tasty, so Blair responds, saying that Alice's bread is the best, and he also asks if she has had lunch already. Though Alice ignores his question and asks one instead, to which Blair agrees to answer. She asks if he likes Isabella, causing him to spit out his cake in shock. He asks her why she is suddenly asking such a question, so she suspects that someone already asked the question to him. She then eagerly waits for his answer. But Blair calmly answers her question while wiping his face, saying that he only wants to study magic right now. Alice says that he has such a ruthless answer, but she also tells him that it's fine, which makes Blair question what she meant. She doesn't reply, but instead kisses him on the cheek. He becomes confused at what she did, so he questions her about what she wanted to do, but she only replies, saying that she will come to play with him again in the future. His classmates see the scene just now, and they think of him now as a senior killer, seeing that he managed to bewitch both Alice and Isabella. The next day, Blair heads to the library outside the academy while thinking of what Alice said earlier. But he decides to stop thinking about it, and instead thinks about the books on the floor he is on, which have mostly already been read by him. He stretches his arms after reading so many books in the library, and he finally thinks that it's time to go to the second floor since he heard that there are higher level magic books in that place. So he heads to the counter where a purple-haired woman resides. The woman looks unfriendly as she is reading a book, Blair approaches her and asks her how he can get to the second floor of the library as he hands his identification to her. She reads that it's only apprentice level, so she informs him that he needs to be a junior magician in order to go to the second floor, to which he replies, saying that he can't pass the certification yet and asks for another way. She says that it can't be helped and that at his magic level, he can't even understand such books. Blair gets a bit triggered after hearing her response, but suddenly, someone calls out to him with his alias. It is Jasmine, who offers her help to him. The woman leaves after seeing that Jasmine knows him, informs her of his circumstances, then asks her to persuade him. Jasmine reiterates that he needs to be a junior magician or else he needs to complete a certification for a new magic in order to go to the second floor. But the possibility of him succeeding is too small, so she asks him to improve his mental power instead to become a junior magician, but Blair agrees to complete the certification, since he states that he just so happened to have a new idea about improving the water element magic. She warns him that if he fails the certification, then the association will blacklist him, which will make him unable to use their resources, but he assures her that it would be just fine. Though Jasmine still looks visibly worried despite his assurance, but she still agrees to let him try and leads him into the certification exam. Jasmine talks to the ones who are going to assess Blair, and they become shocked after hearing that a magic apprentice wants to certify water element improvement magic. The bald man next to her states that it must be another person looking to deceive the association since so many generations have already perfected the water element. The man in blue asks her to tell Blair that he should reconsider since he runs the risk of being blacklisted and penalized by the association. Jasmine tells them that she understands, but she still believes that they should give him a chance to try. They finally agree to authenticate him and ask her to let him in the room. Blair enters and secures his mask in place so as not to let it fall. He goes to greet the two who don't seem to be paying attention to him, but the bald man hears him introduce his name, causing him to remember who he is. Blair states that he has come to certify water element improvement magic, which could greatly increase the power of the water element. The bald man stares at him and yells at him, asking why he is here again after damaging the rune last time. He then convinces the man in blue to move to the test room after remembering what he did previously. But the man in blue is stubborn and calls him a coward for being afraid of a simple magic apprentice. He even orders Blair to hit him with the magic, so he immediately obliges. Blair starts to gather the energy from the air surrounding him. He then absorbs it through his whole body, which causes his eyes to resemble ice and flames. Afterward, he activates 2 elements from the palms of his hands. The man in blue is shocked to see that he is a dual caster, and talks to the bald man about why he didn't say so, but he ignores him and casts a spell to defend himself. Blair then combines both ice and fire in his hands, resulting in both water and steam coming out of the ice, which propels the flame at an immense speed. The bald man panics and tries to defend himself, thinking that it has happened again. Blair's magic is so powerful that it engulfs the room in a bright light that resembles the sun. Our video ends here. To ensure you don't miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.